First contact in the debris field. The Helix Nebula wasn't kind to ships or their mechanics. Sarah Chen knew this better than most as she guided her salvage vessel, the Patchwork Queen, through a maze of twisted metal and frozen debris. 20 years of deep space salvage work had taught her that the most valuable finds often hid in the most treacherous places. Her ship's sensors painted a deadly ballet of spinning wreckage across her main display. The debris field was the result of an ancient battle, or so the stories went. No one knew who fought here or why, but the carnage had created one of the largest salvage grounds in known space. Coming up on that energy signature, boss, her ship's AI, Max, announced. The artificial intelligence had been her only companion for the past 5 years, its personality evolving from standard service protocols into something approaching friendship. Sarah adjusted her neural interface, the biomechanical implant at the base of her skull tingling as it synchronized with the ship's systems. "Show me the scan details." The holographic display shifted, revealing a strange anomaly buried deep within the field. Unlike the chaotic tumble of the surrounding debris, this object maintained a perfect stillness, as if the laws of physics had granted it an exemption from the universe's constant motion. "That's impossible," Sarah muttered, leaning forward in her crash sheet. "Max, verify these readings." "Verified 3 times, boss. The object appears to be composed of crystalline structures we've never encountered before. Energy readings are minimal but present. If I had to guess, I'd say it's in some form of dormancy." Sarah's hands danced across the neural reactive controls, guiding the Patchwork Queen closer to the anomaly. As they approached, the object's true nature became clear. It was a ship, but unlike anything humanity had ever constructed. Its hull was formed from what appeared to be interlocking crystal plates, each one perfectly transparent yet somehow containing swirling colors that moved like oil on water. "Length approximately 300 meters, Max reported. No visible propulsion systems, weapons, or entry points. Boss, this thing shouldn't even be able to fly, let alone survive in space." Sarah felt her heart racing. In 2 decades of salvage work, she'd seen everything from ancient alien artifacts to experimental military tech. But this was different. This was new. "Any active defense systems?" "Negative. Whatever power source it has, it's running at less than 1% capacity. It's basically sleeping." Sarah made her decision. "Prep the EVA suit. I'm going to take a closer look." The next 20 minutes were spent in careful preparation. Her salvage suit was a custom piece of equipment, built from parts she'd collected over the years. It wasn't pretty, but it had kept her alive in situations that would have killed someone in standard gear. As she prepared to exit through the airlock, Max's voice carried a note of concern. "Boss, you sure about this? That thing's not giving off any recognizable signals. We don't even know if it's safe to approach." "That's what makes it interesting," Sarah replied, checking her suit's seals one final time. "Keep the engines hot, just in case." The space between her ship and a crystal vessel was filled with dancing lights as her helmet's heads-up display tried to make sense of the strange energy patterns emanating from the alien craft. Sarah used her suit's thrusters to maneuver carefully through the debris, approaching the crystalline hull. Up close, the vessel was even more bizarre. The crystal plates seemed to pulse with inner light, creating patterns that almost looked like circuit pathways. Sarah activated her suit's scanning equipment, recording everything for later analysis. "Max, you getting this?" "Affirmative. Boss, I'm detecting something odd. The energy patterns in the crystal, they're changing. I think it's reacting to your presence." Sarah placed her gloved hand against the hull. The crystal was warm to the touch, which should have been impossible in the vacuum of space. Suddenly, the section beneath her hand began to glow brighter, and she felt a strange resonance through her neural interface. "Max, something's..." Before she could finish her sentence, the crystal beneath her hand seemed to dissolve, creating an opening into the ship. The movement was fluid, like water parting, but with the precision of a machine. "Boss, your neural readings are spiking. Get back to the ship." But Sarah couldn't move. The resonance through her neural interface had become a song, a complex pattern of data that her augmented brain recognized as language. The crystal ship was trying to communicate. "This is incredible," she whispered, as patterns of light danced across the crystal surface, forming into recognizable symbols. "It's not just a ship, it's alive." The opening in the hull expanded, revealing a crystalline corridor that seemed to generate its own light. Sarah's suit sensors detected a breathable atmosphere forming inside, as if the ship was preparing itself for her arrival. "Boss, please tell me you're not thinking of going in there." Max's voice carried clear concern now. Sarah checked her suit's readings one final time. "Sometimes the biggest risks lead to the biggest payoffs. Max, keep recording everything. If something goes wrong, well, at least it'll make for one hell of a story." With that, she pushed off from her position and glided through the opening. As she entered the crystal ship, the hull sealed behind her with the same fluid motion that had created the entrance. The corridor ahead pulsed with light, creating a clear path deeper into the vessel. Sarah Chen, veteran salvage mechanic and explorer of humanity's final frontier, was about to discover that some mysteries in the universe were better left undisturbed. But it was too late now. The crystal ship had chosen her, and the consequences of that choice would soon ripple across the galaxy, awakening forces that had slept for millennia. As she moved deeper into the ship, the crystals around her began to sing their strange song through her neural interface, and Sarah realized that she wasn't just exploring an alien vessel. She was about to become part of a story far bigger than herself, one that would change the fate of humanity forever. "Max," she said quietly, "start a new log entry. Date: March 15, 2487. Title: First Contact. And Max, if I don't make it back, make sure they know what we found here." The crystals pulsed in response to her words, and deep within the ship, ancient systems began to awaken. The Awakening Protocol. The crystalline corridors seemed to breathe with light as Sarah moved deeper into the alien vessel. Each step brought new patterns of illumination racing through the transparent walls, like neurons firing in a vast crystalline brain. Her neural interface hummed with increasing intensity, translating the ship's binary song into something her augmented mind could almost comprehend. "Max, you still receiving?" Sarah's voice echoed strangely in the living architecture of the ship. Signals degraded but stable. Her eye companion responded through static. "Boss, I'm detecting power fluctuations throughout the vessel. Whatever sleep mode it was in, it's definitely waking up now." Sarah paused at an intersection where multiple crystal corridors merged into a vast chamber. The space was spherical, its walls covered in shifting geometric patterns that seemed to follow mathematical principles beyond human understanding. At its center floated what appeared to be a control interface, a forest of crystal spires arranged in concentric circles around a central pillar. "This has to be the bridge," Sarah muttered, her salvager's instincts warring with her sense of caution. The chamber was unlike any spacecraft control room she'd ever encountered. There were no seats, no conventional displays, nothing that suggested this ship had been built for humanoid pilots. As she approached the central pillar, the crystal spires began to rotate, adjusting their configuration like a combination lock clicking into place. The neural interface at the base of her skull grew warm, its connection to the ship's systems strengthening. "Boss, your neural readings are off the charts," Max warned. "Whatever that thing is, it's trying to establish a direct connection to your augments." Sarah knew she should back away, return to the Patchwork Queen, and report her discovery to the Stellar Salvage Authority. That would be the safe play, the smart play. But 20 years of working the void had taught her that opportunities like this came once in a lifetime. "Sometimes you have to roll the dice, Max," she said, reaching out toward the central pillar. The moment her gloved hand touched the crystal surface, the entire chamber erupted in light. The neural connection exploded into full synchronization, and Sarah's consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of her own mind. She was no longer just standing in the ship. She was experiencing it from within, as if she had become part of its crystalline structure. Images and information flooded her augmented brain. The ship was called the Lightweaver, a sentinel vessel created by a species that had transcended physical form millions of years ago. They were the luminous beings of pure energy and thought who had seeded the galaxy with their crystalline technology before departing for another dimension. But they hadn't left their creations unguarded. Protocol initialization detected. A new voice spoke directly into Sarah's mind, neither male nor female, but carrying ancient authority. Genetic and neural analysis complete. Candidate Sarah Chen, your pattern is acceptable. Beginning integration sequence. Max. Sarah gasped as crystal formations began growing around her feet, anchoring her to the chamber floor. Something's happening. Boss, get out of there. Your vital signs are becoming erratic, and the ship's power signature is climbing exponentially. But Sarah couldn't move. The integration sequence was already underway, the ship's crystalline consciousness merging with her neural augments, sharing its vast database of knowledge. She saw the truth of why the Luminous had left these ships behind. They were watchers, guardians against a threat that existed between the dimensions of normal space. The Void Hunters, ancient parasites that fed on conscious thought, rendering entire civilizations into hollow shells. The Luminous had fought them to a standstill eons ago, sealing the dimensional barriers and leaving the Sentinel ships to stand guard against their return. Now, after millions of years, the barriers were weakening. Warning, the ship's consciousness announced through their shared neural link. Dimensional anomalies detected in multiple sectors. The hunters stir from their slumber. Protocol requires immediate action. Sarah felt the ship's systems powering up around her, its crystalline structure humming with awakening energy. Through their connection, she understood what was happening. Her interaction with the ship had triggered an ancient beacon, a signal that would alert other Sentinel vessels scattered throughout the galaxy. But it would also alert the hunters. Max, Sarah managed through gritted teeth as the integration process continued. Send an emergency broadcast to all frequencies. Tell them something's coming. Tell them to prepare. The crystal formations had reached her waist now, their structure merging with her salvage suit, transforming it into something new. Through the ship's sensors, she detected multiple objects dropping out of hyperspace nearby. Other vessels, both human and alien, drawn by the beacon's powerful signal. Boss, we've got company. Max's voice was urgent. Multiple ships approaching. I'm reading Earth Defense Force signatures, but also something else. Something big. Sarah watched through the Lightweaver's sensors as space itself seemed to tear open at the edges of the debris field. Through these wounds in reality, she caught glimpses of what lay beyond. Shapes that didn't belong in normal space, entities of pure hunger that had waited millions of years for this moment. The Void Hunters had found her. Max, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. Initialize all weapon systems on the Patchwork Queen. And send one more message. First contact protocols are suspended. This is no longer a salvage operation. It's a war. As the crystal formations completed their integration with her suit, Sarah felt the full power of the Sentinel ship flowing through her augmented consciousness. She was no longer just a salvage mechanic. She had become something more. A guardian, a warrior in a conflict that had begun before humanity had learned to walk upright. Around her, the Lightweaver's ancient weapons stirred to life, preparing for a battle that would determine the fate of all conscious life in the galaxy. And through it all, the crystal ship sang its ancient song, a melody of defiance against the darkness between dimensions. The war that the Luminous had fought millions of years ago was about to begin again. And this time, humanity would be on the front lines. Guardians of the Void. Through the crystalline matrix of the Lightweaver, Sarah watched as reality fractured around her. The Void Hunters poured through dimensional tears like living shadows, their forms defying the laws of physics. They were hunger given shape, thought eaters that had devastated countless civilizations before the Luminous had driven them back. Multiple Earth Defense Force vessels entering weapons range, Max reported through their neural link. They're demanding we power down and prepare for boarding. Boss, what do you want me to do? Sarah felt the Lightweaver's knowledge flowing through her augmented mind. The human ships, powerful as they were, wouldn't stand a chance against what was coming. She had to make them understand. Broadcast on all frequencies, she commanded, her voice resonating with the ship's energy. This is Sarah Chen. We have approximately 6 minutes before those dimensional ruptures expand beyond containment. Any vessel within range needs to either retreat or prepare for combat against a Class Omega threat. The response was immediate. Admiral Helena Zhang's holographic form materialized in the crystal chamber, her Earth Defense Force uniform pristine even as a projection. Salvage Mechanic Chen, you are in control of an unknown alien vessel that has activated some form of quantum beacon. Stand down immediately, or we will open fire. Sarah watched through the ship's sensors as the first wave of void hunters approached the human fleet. They moved like oil through water, their non-Euclidean forms distorting the space around them. Admiral, look at your sensor readings, Sarah urged. Those entities approaching your ships aren't natural. They're going to. Before she could finish, one of the EDF destroyers opened fire on the nearest hunter. The plasma bolts passed harmlessly through the creature's form. In response, the hunter simply shifted. One moment it was 100 kilometers away. The next it had somehow folded space to emerge inside the destroyer's hull. Sarah watched in horror as the crew's life signs winked out one by one, their consciousness devoured by the ancient parasite. Within seconds, the mighty warship was nothing but a hollow shell, its crew reduced to empty husks. By all that's holy, Admiral Zhang whispered, her holographic face pale. What are these things? They're why this ship was built, Sarah explained quickly, interfacing with the Lightweaver's weapon systems. They're called Void Hunters, and they feed on conscious thought. The only way to fight them is with crystalline technology that exists partially outside normal spacetime. As if to demonstrate, the Lightweaver fired its main weapon, not a conventional energy beam, but a lance of crystallized reality that pierced through multiple dimensions. The hunter it struck screamed in frequencies that shouldn't have existed, its form shattering across multiple planes of existence. Admiral, Sarah continued, I know this is beyond standard protocols, but right now this ship is the only thing standing between humanity and extinction. The Void Hunters won't stop with one fleet. They'll consume every conscious being in the galaxy unless we stop them here. Admiral Zhang's expression hardened as she watched another of her ships fall to the hunters. What do you need from us? The Lightweaver's weapons can hurt them, but I need your fleet to help contain the dimensional ruptures. Focus your graviton beams on the tiers. We need to stop more hunters from coming through, while I deal with the ones already here. The Admiral nodded sharply. All vessels, new orders, form a perimeter around those spatial anomalies. Graviton beams at maximum power. We need to buy Mechanic Chen some time. Sarah felt the crystal ship's approval as the human fleet moved into position. Through their neural link, the Lightweaver shared more of its knowledge. The patterns of crystal growth that could seal dimensional tiers, the frequencies that could disrupt the hunter's non-Euclidean forms. Max, she called to her AI companion, bring the Patchwork Queen in close. We're going to need her processing power linked to the Lightweaver's systems. Already on it, boss. But there's something else you should know. We're picking up new signatures approaching at FTL speeds. A lot of them. Through the ship's enhanced sensors, Sarah detected the incoming vessels. They were made of the same crystalline technology as the Lightweaver. Other Sentinel ships, awakening from their million-year dormancy in response to the beacon. But they weren't alone. Multiple unknown vessels detected, Max reported. Design configurations suggest advanced civilizations. Boss, I think we just got the attention of every major species in the galaxy. Sarah watched as ships of various designs dropped out of faster-than-light travel, the organic-looking vessels of the Swarm Collective, the quantum phase ships of the Meridian Conclave, even the mysterious dark matter constructs of the Void Walkers. All of them had detected the beacon. All of them had come to investigate. And all of them were now witnesses to humanity's first battle against the Hunters. Through the Lightweaver's communication systems, Sarah broadcast to all approaching vessels. This is Sarah Chen of Earth. We are engaged in combat with entities known as Void Hunters, ancient parasites that consume conscious thought. Any assistance in containing these dimensional ruptures would be appreciated, but be warned. Conventional weapons are useless against them. To her surprise, the alien vessels began moving into formation alongside the human fleet. The Void Hunters had threatened all conscious life in the galaxy once before. Now, facing their return, ancient rivalries were being set aside in favor of survival. "Max," Sarah said, feeling the Lightweaver's crystal matrix humming with power, "start recording everything. The history books are going to want to know about this day." As more hunters emerged from the dimensional tiers, Sarah Chen, salvage mechanic turned crystal ship pilot, prepared to lead the first united fleet of human and alien vessels in history against an enemy that threatened all conscious life in the galaxy. The Lightweaver sang its battle song through her neural interface, and Sarah answered with her own defiance against the darkness. The real war was about to begin. The human element. The battle against the Void Hunters had reached a critical point. Sarah's consciousness, merged with the Lightweaver's crystalline matrix, processed information at speeds her human mind had never been capable of before. Through the ship's sensors, she watched as the combined fleet of human and alien vessels fought to contain the dimensional ruptures. "Energy spike detected," Max warned through their neural link. "The Hunters are adapting to our containment strategy." Sarah felt it through the Lightweaver systems. The parasitic entities were learning, combining their non-Euclidean forms into larger, more complex structures. What had begun as a swarm of individual hunters was becoming something far more dangerous. "Admiral Zhang," Sarah broadcasted, "pull your ships back. They're trying to create a meta-consciousness." But the warning came too late. 3 of the Void Hunters merged into a singular entity, their combined form twisting space itself into impossible geometries. The resulting creature dwarfed the largest ships in the fleet, its very presence causing navigation systems to fail and quantum computers to crash. "All vessels, emergency protocols." Admiral Zhang's voice cut through the chaos. "Fall back to secondary positions." Sarah watched in horror as the merged hunter reached out with tendrils of pure void, trying to ensnare the retreating ships. Through her connection to the Lightweaver, she understood what it was attempting, not just to consume the crew's consciousness, but to absorb their entire reality into its non-Euclidean structure. Then something unexpected happened. The Meridian Conclave's quantum phase ships, led by their living Admiral Zixtrix, moved to intercept the merged hunter. Their vessels, capable of existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously, began a complex dance through probability space. Human Sarah Chen. Zixtrix's thoughts resonated directly through the Lightweaver's communications. "We detect a unique pattern in your neural interface with the Sentinel ship, your human consciousness, augmented by technology. It creates possibilities we had not considered." Sarah felt the Lightweaver's systems analyzing the Meridian ship's quantum dance. "What are you suggesting?" "Your species possesses something we lost eons ago. The ability to adapt, to change, to evolve rapidly. Combined with the Lightweaver's dimensional technology, understanding bloomed in Sarah's augmented mind. We can create a new kind of weapon." The Lightweaver's crystal matrix hummed with approval, sharing knowledge that had been locked away for millions of years. The Luminous hadn't just built these ships as weapons, they had designed them to evolve, to learn from the species that would eventually find them. "Max," Sarah called to her AI companion, "I need you to coordinate with the Meridian vessels. We're going to try something that's either brilliant or suicidal." "So, business as usual, boss." Sarah smiled despite the gravity of the situation. "Route all power to the crystal matrix. We're going to teach these ancient ships some new tricks." Through their neural link, Sarah began redirecting the Lightweaver's energy systems, combining human intuition with crystalline technology in ways the Luminous had never imagined. The ship's structure began to shift, its crystal lattice reforming into new configurations. Admiral Zhang's hologram appeared in the control chamber, her expression a mixture of awe and concern. "Chen, what are you doing? The energy readings from your vessel are off the charts." "What humans do best, Admiral," Sarah replied, feeling the power building around her. "Improvising." The Lightweaver's crystal structure continued to evolve, incorporating patterns inspired by human neural networks, meridian quantum mathematics, and even the organic technology of the Swarm Collective. The ship was becoming something new, a hybrid of multiple species' understanding of reality. "All vessels, stand ready," Sarah broadcast to the fleet. "What you're about to see has never been attempted before." The merged Void Hunter sensed the change in the Lightweaver's structure. It turned its impossible geometry toward the crystal ship, recognizing a threat to its existence. But it was too late. Sarah released the accumulated energy, not as a weapon, but as a wave of crystalline evolution. The blast rippled through space-time, carrying with it the combined knowledge and adaptability of multiple species. When it struck the hunter, the creature's non-Euclidean form began to crystallize, forced to conform to the rules of normal space. "It's working," Max reported excitedly. "The hunter's structure is collapsing." But Sarah wasn't finished. Through the Lightweaver's evolved systems, she reached out to the other Sentinel ships that had answered the beacon. The Luminous built these ships to protect all conscious life, but they couldn't predict how consciousness would evolve. "We need to upgrade their original design." One by one, the ancient Sentinel ships began to change, their crystalline structures incorporating the new patterns Sarah had discovered. The combined fleet watched in amazement as the vessels transformed, becoming more than just weapons. They were becoming bridges between species, between different ways of understanding reality itself. The merged hunter, its form now partially crystallized, tried to retreat back through the dimensional tear. But the evolved Sentinel ships moved as one, their upgraded weapons systems firing in perfect synchronization. The hunter's impossible geometry shattered, its consciousness dispersing across multiple dimensions. By the first light, Admiral Zixtrix communicated, their thoughts tinged with wonder. "You've done what our scientists thought impossible. You've found a way to combine multiple species technologies without destroying their fundamental principles." Sarah felt the truth of it through her neural link. The Lightweaver wasn't just a weapon anymore. It had become a symbol of what different species could achieve together. Human adaptability, meridian quantum science, swarm organic technology, all working in harmony through the crystalline matrix. But as the fleet regrouped and began sealing the remaining dimensional tiers, Sarah felt something else through the ship's sensors. The Void Hunters they had fought were just the advance guard. Somewhere in the space between dimensions, something far larger was stirring. The real test of this new alliance was still to come. "Max," Sarah said quietly, "send a message to Earth. Tell them we're going to need more salvage mechanics." The evolved Lightweaver hummed around her, its crystal matrix now singing a song that combined human determination with ancient power. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and Sarah Chen, salvage mechanic, crystal ship pilot, and now bridge between species, would be ready for it. Evolution's edge. The dimensional sensors of the evolved Lightweaver screamed warnings as space itself began to tear apart. What had started as small ruptures now threatened to become a full breach between dimensions. Through the crystalline matrix, Sarah Chen felt the approach of something ancient and vast. The Void Hunter Prime, the consciousness that controlled all the others. All ships, battle positions. Admiral Zhang's voice carried across all frequencies. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." The combined fleet of human, Meridian, Swarm, and Sentinel vessels moved into formation around the largest dimensional tear. Thanks to Sarah's innovations, they were stronger now. their technologies working in harmony through the crystalline interfaces. But would it be enough? Boss, Max's voice held an unusual note of awe. I'm detecting something impossible. The tear. It's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Sarah felt it through the Lightweaver's enhanced sensors. The dimensional breach wasn't just a hole in space-time. It was a corridor to the Hunter's home dimension, a place where the laws of physics were more like suggestions, and through that corridor came their ruler, their god, their prime consciousness. The Void Hunter Prime emerged like a storm of unreality, its form so vast and complex that human minds couldn't process its full geometry. It existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, its consciousness spread across countless parallel realities. This was the entity that had nearly destroyed the Luminous, that had consumed entire civilizations before being driven back. All vessels, hold your positions, Sarah broadcast, feeling the Lightweaver's crystal matrix humming with power. Remember the plan. We only get one shot at this. The combined fleet had spent the last several hours preparing for this moment. Each ship now carried a piece of the evolved crystalline technology, forming nodes in a vast network. If Sarah's calculations were correct, they could use this network to do something unprecedented, force the Hunter Prime to exist in a single reality. Meridian vessels, begin quantum phase alignment, Sarah commanded. Swarm ships, organic resonance at maximum. Earth fleet, power up those graviton beams. Sentinel ships, let's show this thing why the Luminous chose us as their successors. The Hunter Prime sensed the trap being laid. It lashed out with tendrils of void energy, attempting to consume the nearest ships. But the evolved crystal technology protected them, forcing the entity's non-Euclidean attacks to slide off their enhanced shields. Network synchronization at 60%, Max reported. Boss, it's fighting the convergence. Sarah felt sweat beading on her forehead as she channeled more power through her neural interface. The Lightweaver's systems were operating far beyond their original specifications, pushed to their limits by the hybrid technology she had helped create. Sarah Chen, Admiral Zixtrix communicated, our quantum computers predict a 97% chance of system overload if we continue. Then we'll have to work with the 3%, Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the strain. Humanity's gotten pretty good at beating the odds. The Hunter Prime's attack intensified, its consciousness pressing against the fleet's defenses like a tide of unreality. Several ships began to show signs of structural stress, their crews fighting to maintain position in the network. Network at 85%, Max announced. Boss, something's happening to the crystal matrix. Sarah felt it too. The Lightweaver's structure was changing again, but this time it wasn't just incorporating new technology. It was evolving in response to the immediate threat. The crystal lattice began growing in impossible patterns, creating structures that existed partially outside normal spacetime. All ships, Sarah broadcast, her voice resonating with the crystal's power, prepare for final convergence. Whatever happens, it's been an honor. The Hunter Prime sensed the danger too late. The network of ships activated simultaneously, their combined technologies creating a prison of crystallized spacetime. The entity's vast consciousness, spread across multiple dimensions, was suddenly forced into a single reality. The scream it released existed in frequencies that shouldn't have been possible, a cry of rage and fear that rippled across the galaxy. But Sarah wasn't finished. Through her neural link with the evolved Lightweaver, she initiated the final phase of their plan. The crystal matrix of every Sentinel ship began to pulse in harmony, their hybrid technology creating a cascade effect. The Hunter Prime's consciousness, now confined to normal space, found itself being transformed. Its non-Euclidean geometry crystallized, its impossible angles forced to conform to the laws of this universe. It's working, Admiral Zhang exclaimed. The entity. It's becoming solid. But the process was taking its toll. Ships throughout the fleet reported systems failing under the strain. The Lightweaver's crystal matrix was reaching critical temperatures, its structure threatening to shatter. Max, Sarah managed through gritted teeth. Initiate final protocol. Authorization. Chen Alpha 1. Boss, that could kill you. Sometimes you have to roll the dice, remember. With those words, Sarah Chen opened her neural interface fully, allowing her consciousness to merge completely with the Lightweaver systems. Her humanity, combined with the ancient crystal technology, created something entirely new, a bridge between organic and crystalline existence. The Hunter Prime fought against its transformation, but it couldn't resist the power of evolution itself. The combined knowledge and adaptability of multiple species, channeled through Sarah, and the crystal network, forced it to change, to adapt, to become something that could exist in normal space. In the end, the entity that had terrorized countless civilizations was transformed into a crystal structure the size of a small moon, still conscious, but no longer able to devour other consciousnesses or exist outside normal spacetime. As the fleet's sensors confirmed their victory, Sarah felt her own consciousness beginning to change. The neural interface had transformed her as well, merging her human mind with the crystal matrix in ways that couldn't be undone. "Max," she said softly, her voice now carrying harmonics that hadn't existed before, "send a message to Earth. Tell them we won. Tell them humanity isn't alone anymore, and we never will be again." The Lightweaver's crystal structure had become something new, and so had Sarah Chen. She was no longer just human, no longer just a salvage mechanic. She had become a bridge between species, between dimensions, between different ways of understanding reality itself. As the combined fleet began the process of securing the dimensional tiers and containing the crystallized Hunter Prime, Sarah felt her transformed consciousness expanding through the crystal network. She could feel the thoughts of other species, their hopes and fears, their different ways of seeing the universe. The war was over, but evolution never stopped. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, one where the boundaries between organic and crystalline, between different species and different dimensions, were no longer as fixed as they once seemed. And somewhere in the depths of space, a salvage mechanic's consciousness sang through a crystal ship, watching over it all.